Tonight on Philly Sports Spotlight, brothers in arms do battle for the 113th time as Army and Navy invade Lincoln Financial Field. Our continued look at Philadelphia's City 6 basketball as Joe B. Smith hangs out on Hawk Hill. And Temple football in search of their third head coach in 4 years as Steve Addazio bids adieu to North Broad. Hello there and welcome to Philly Sports Spotlight. I'm Phil Andrews, and how many times have you heard it? Your football team having an awful season and all you can think about is when do pitchers and catchers report? Well, if you're a Philadelphia sports fan, the answer to that question is Tuesday, February 12th. But many Phillies fans recently getting a couple of early holiday gifts as the team added a little help at the hot corner after acquiring seven-time All-Star infielder Michael Young from the Texas Rangers. Now, the move coming after Young agreed to waive his no-trade clause. In return, Texas getting right-hander Josh Lindblom and minor league righty Lisberto Bonilla. You should also know that Young is due to make $60 million this upcoming season, $10 million of which the Rangers have agreed to pay, with the Phillies taking care of the balance. Now, in addition to his baseball abilities, Young will also add some much-needed leadership to that Phillies clubhouse. Phil's manager Ruben Amaro Jr. also acquired speedy outfielder Ben Revere for the Minnesota Twins in exchange for pitchers Vance Worley and pitching prospect Trevor May. Now, Revere has been tapped to play center field, where he has pretty much been a vacuum cleaner over the last year or so, tracking down almost every ball hit his way. As a matter of fact, he didn't make a single error while playing 121 games at all three outfield positions last season. The 24-year-old, however, is not a power hitter, 0 home runs and only 33 extra base hits in 1,064 plate appearances. Now, getting back to the Eagles, and more specifically, those of you who are hoping the team would lose their remaining games. Sorry to burst your bubble, but you have to admit that was some finish by the rookie quarterback Nick Foles, getting a franchise rookie record 32 completions and 381 yards to go along with 2 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing TD. The last-second win also helped the team avoid losing its 9th consecutive game. All fine and dandy, but still does not change the course that team owner Jeffrey Lurie must make at the end of the season. Former Eagle Ken Dunek now joining us once again here on the set of Philly Sports Spotlight. And, you know, in your December issue with Michael Smerconic on the cover, you write a great story about Andy Reid, Time's Yours, but Time's Up. A brilliant title to what I thought was a very well-written article.
I appreciate it, Phil. You know, I take no pleasure in this. I think Andy Reid's a good man, and he has had a winning record. And as an ex-Eagle, I do appreciate his service. But, you know, all coaches do have a shelf life, and unfortunately, I think Andy's time is up.
Well, you've pinpointed 5 specific areas where you think this Reid regime has really fallen apart. And let's start with your first area of concern.
Yeah, you know, championship teams choose character over talent, and the signing of Terrell Owens indicated a shift in philosophy. You know, some teams can get away with it. Now, New England could take some bad characters and they have a strong team concept, so they get away with it. But the Oakland Raiders, you know, they try the same thing and they don't. So usually to build a championship team, it takes character over talent. And
then your second point?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the poor drafts. You know, they've whiffed too many times in these high picks, the 1 through 4 picks. You know, I understand the draft is a crapshoot, but you need to roll more 7s, and the Eagles have crapped out too many times.
Well, it looks like they got themselves a good quarterback, though.
They do. You know, they do now. I do think, in looking back, the acquisition of Michael Vick was a mistake. There are some character issues there that are well documented. And, you know, frankly, he's a small quarterback and gets injured too often. He's not on the field enough. You know, we go to the next screen, which is coaching hires and schemes. You know, the wide 9 and the Jim Washroom hire was a disaster. They took an offensive line coach like Juan Castillo, a good offensive line coach, made him a defensive coordinator, a position that he probably really wasn't qualified for, and then fired him a year and a half into his service. You know, Andy's recent moves just don't make a lot of sense.
All right, I just want to real quick talk about Juan Castillo, because as you know, Juan Castillo was a defensive player in college, also in the USFL. And, you know, he spent a lot of time, you know, following what was going on with the defensive coordinator prior to taking over the spot. And, Andy believed that he could do the job. And obviously we saw what happened after he left. The defense got worse up until this weekend.
Yeah, he did, and it's a risky maneuver. I mean, there's not a whole lot of organizations would have the guts to make that kind of move. Some people call arrogance, but again, Andy chose to go in that direction. It just didn't work out.
Okay, one final thing in your article, you talk about the discipline, because early in his regime, Andy Reid was a disciplinarian, but he kind of let things go along the way.
Yeah, the press and the public are fatigued with the line, "It's my responsibility," and players are really not responding to it anymore. The greatest motivator as a professional football player is fear. Fear of losing your starting job, fear of losing your pay, fear of being called out in the media by your poor performance. And again, it looks like they've turned a deaf ear to this "it's my responsibility" line that Andy says all the time in the press conferences.
Okay, one final thing. I'm going to throw you a curve right now, which I know you can handle. The one thing, I've worked in this town long enough, Dick Vermeil and Andy Reid, the only two Eagles head coaches to take teams to a Super Bowl, both lost, and yet the fans in this town, they just love Dick Vermeil. Why is that so versus Andy Reid?
Well, I got to tell you, Dick Vermeil's a tough act to follow. I mean, in my lifetime, other than JFK, Dick Vermeil probably has the most charisma of any individual, I've ever been around or looked at. And, Andy is not as confident with his public image, and I think it shows up. And, again, some people perceive that as arrogant. I just think in some cases it's insecure. In any event, Dick Vermeil was a tough act to follow.
Well, as usual, great job by you. And folks, if any of you would like to read Ken's article for yourself, you can do so by picking up the latest edition of Jersey Man magazine. We see Michael Smerconish on the cover. And by the way, if you check out page number 9, you'll find out that Smerconish not the only bald-headed guy in this month's edition of Jersey Man magazine. Once again, Ken Dunek, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll see you down the road.
Good to be here, my friend.
Of course it's good to be here with me. We're amongst friends.
It goes without saying.
All right, folks. We're going to take a break right about now. When we come back, we're going to continue checking in on the 113th Army-Navy game. My good friend Joby Smith hung out there this weekend, and he's going to bring you his sights and sound of that great rivalry. Stay tuned.